Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Moss, host of the program that comes on here at allpointstv.com, and the name of the program that comes on at 2 o'clock, and we're here every Monday. You can pick us up at your leisure. The program is called What's Going On, and we are delighted again to have you with us because we think we have something that you would like to be a part of, and we try to bring something to the studio every Monday that we think is something new and different from what you're getting from other sources. Today, after this program is over, by the way, we'll have Satori's Black History Corner that's following this program, and it'll be on at 3:30. And they normally hang around to 4 o'clock, so you might just want to stay around after this program is over, those of you watching this program live, and wait around for another 15, 20 minutes or so when we get off the air. And when they come on, you'll be able to enjoy 2 quality programs. I'm gonna say, despite popular opinion, this is a quality program that we're putting on here. What's going on? You might disagree with that. Last week, well, let me first of all tell you what happened before I came to the studio today. And I was running behind schedule because just as I get ready to step out the door, it seems like somebody got to call me and waste my time with some more nonsense. And today's chronicle was somebody calling me right as I was due at the studio, got to come in and do the program, and somebody called me at the last minute. And they wanted to tell me what they run across on YouTube, and they had to tell me that Obama, according to the YouTube video, is the son of Malcolm X. And I had to hear that for about 10 minutes or so, and he was just so sure of his of the fact that this was a fact, and I had to spend some time with him to kind of cure him of his insanity. that could not possibly be true, based upon any timeline and understanding of the Malcolm X legacy in this country, and I understand that legacy probably better than most. Even some of these experts out here, like this guy named Manning Marable, who wrote this butchery on Malcolm X, where he was talking about the reinvention of Malcolm, given the stages of Malcolm X's life went through, and he reinvented Malcolm in that biographical nonsense that he wrote. I mean, I can't believe that guy. Manning Marable is now deceased, so I guess I can. I was going to say I can't talk about him, but maybe I can because it's probably safer to talk about them once they're gone than it is when they're alive, because you don't get any knuckle sandwiches. But what Manning Marable wrote in that book is a travesty, and now I'm hearing all these other things that come out. Malcolm X's son is Barack Obama, and this guy wanted to call him and tell me. I just saw this on YouTube, and Malcolm X was the son of Malcolm X is Barack Obama. They both were at some point in time in Chicago. And I was telling him the first problem that I got with that is that Obama was born in Hawaii. So did he go over there? Were they flying back and forth? How did that happen? Did he send his test tube over there? I mean, just nonsense. And people are easily swayed. And I was really surprised to hear it from this person, because in a lot of ways he's pretty aware of a lot of things that you would not find the average Joe on the street that's aware of. And so when they come and they want to have that conversation, you kind of raise your eyebrows and you're kind of surprised to be having that conversation with this person, although with a lot of other people you're not surprised. I was stunned by it, but spent about 10 to 15 minutes just trying to tell him how that could not be true based on the timelines. And also just based upon the fact that there's the one thing about Malcolm X's legacy that we need to hold on to, and that is the fact that Malcolm was a Puritanist in terms of any of that kind of stuff, and that's clear based upon a number of different books written about Malcolm on different continents. As a matter of fact, the book called Ghosts in Our Blood by John Carew is a good place to start, and there's also the book called the Education of a Proper Negro by Leslie Alexander Lacey, that spotted Malcolm over in Ghana when Malcolm went over there during this period when he was in transition. And the reports are both the same. And I have to say this, I don't have respect for Manning Marable, because Manning Marable wrote the introduction to this book by John Carew called Ghosts in Our Blood. For him to write what he wrote after John Carew had written his book and had put any of that that gossip to rest by what he said to Malcolm X when Malcolm was abroad and nobody was looking, and here was Malcolm acting the same way he acted when the spotlight was on him. And that was clear in John Carew's book. And for Manning Marable to come behind that after writing the introduction to that book and then write his own book and then make these fallacious claims in that book, I think that is unforgivable. And so I had to have that conversation with him before coming to the studio. And, because that requires a conversation. I'm sure he's going to call me back when I get out of here today. But that's what they're saying. There's no credence to that. That's a total, misrepresentation. Last week, you recall, those of you who pay attention to the program here on a weekly basis will recall that last week we stopped off, we were talking about whether or not I'm thinking about Mario Puzo, who wrote the book The Godfather. It's not him. I wish it were. Marco Rubio. I was saying last week, and I'm saying this despite the naysayers and the scholars out there who are saying otherwise, I'm saying that neither Marco Rubio nor Ted Cruz, either one of these men is eligible to be president of the United States based upon the Constitution. And those of you who are saying what these so-called scholars are saying is that the Constitution is not clear about that question because the term natural born citizen is not qualified nor defined in the Constitution. I can tell you right now that you have a reading problem. And so do these ridiculous scholars who can't read, apparently. And I'm going to help them with the reading, because if you say that is not defined in the Constitution, it's because of a number of things. But one of the things it's certainly related to is that there are people who want to claim that the Constitution is not clear, and that way they have to go into looking at intent. And intent is a way of going outside of the Constitution. When you look at intent, you have to look at that which is not written down. And that way you can expand the power of the courts and also the power of the Congress by saying, well, this is what they wrote, but here's what the intent was in back of it. And I'm going to show, number one, that it is in here if you can read it. And I'm going to also make this claim. You scholars, write this down. Because you don't know anything. You think that you do. You don't know anything. And I'm talking about these scholars. To be honest with you, these scholars make me I get a little sick of these scholars because, they'll quote, even people like Alan Dershowitz, this airhead, what's his name, Turgle, over there. I think he's a constitutionalist at, American University. I think his name, I know it starts with T, Turgle or something like that. I hear him on TV. Turley's his name, Jonathan Turley. He's on Fox quite a bit, and when they want to find out something that is from the scholarly domain, those who are constitutional scholars, who never quote the Constitution but quote what the Supreme Court said. You tell me how you're a scholar of the Constitution and you have learned all the court cases that abrogate what the Constitution says. Now you tell me how that's a scholar in the Constitution, where all they're doing is just making, showing test cases where the Supreme Court has made a ruling, and then in order to make a ruling in the present time, the court wants to go back and find out what it said earlier. We're going to check with the court who's going to make a ruling today based upon the precedent set by what the court said in the past. Can we get to the Constitution at some point in time? Because that is not a constitutional scholar. Somebody can tell what the Supreme Court said. I quite frankly don't care what the court said, because they're not interpreting the Constitution. And that has a whole lot of conversations to it. And I would like to have somebody go and read on that level. Go and read about what happened in 1905 when the judge named Horace Gray, you might have heard of the Insular cases that came up as a result of the annexation the territorial annexation without them becoming states of Guam, the Philippines, Puerto Rico. We already had Hawaii, but the question was whether or not the Constitution would follow the territorial spaces that we were in fact accumulating through these wars we were fighting, through this imperialism that had been unleashed by the vestiges of the Civil War. Because after the Civil War came to a close, to some extent it's already in place through the Polk War in 1845 to 1848, when we annexed some parts of places like Texas and California and all of that. But the imperialist ambitions were really unleashed after the Civil War came to a close, and that took place both on the soil and also outside the country. And now the question comes up in the insular cases that came up from 1901 to 1904, whether or not the flag, the Constitution would follow the territorial acquisitions that were in place, because we were in fact acquiring territory. And the court made a determination, not based on the Constitution and not based upon the idea of natural law, but based upon the 5-4 verdict, of 5 members of the Supreme Court saying one thing and 4 of them saying the other. And the reason why they disagree so vehemently with each other is because they're not basing their ruling upon the Constitution, they're basing upon the political outlook of the people on the court. But once Horace Gray, who was one of the judges, made that ruling, then he stepped down from the court for whatever reasons. I don't think it had anything to do with the fact he had made this stupid ruling that he made at that time on the insular cases. But anyway, after that ruling was made, he stepped down from the court. And now we got to pick out another person to take his place. And guess what happened there? It was Henry Cabot Lodge, wasn't it? That went to Theodore Roosevelt, and they're having a conversation of who they're going to put in the place of Horace Gray. And they had to pick somebody out of the political milieu that would in fact follow in the footsteps of Horace Gray, who was the 5th vote in the court, make sure he was politically grounded in what the Roosevelt administration wanted to continue to do. And there were a lot of things that Roosevelt had in mind, being a progressive. In fact, the first progressive this country has ever elected into office. He would not be the last. So far, Obama's the last, but we had a number of them after that. After Theodore Roosevelt, who came into the presidency in 1901 after the assassination of William McKinley. Then we had, Taft in there for an interim period, and then the bankers brought back Theodore Roosevelt and used him. Roosevelt wasn't aware he was being used, but he was being used by the bankers. They wanted Taft out of there at all costs, and by splitting the vote with Theodore Roosevelt running on the Bull Moose Party, it really was running on the Progressive Party, but it's been known in history as the Bull Moose Party. And that split the vote up, and then the vote then was given to this other progressive that came in there that would in fact do the will of the bankers. That's that guy who was the 28th president of the United States, Woodrow Wilson. Theodore Roosevelt was number 26. Anyway, what I want to say about this idea of the Constitution and these judges, who I have no respect for, and those that's quoting what these guys have said, I don't have no respect for them either. They're a bunch of jugheads that would sit up here talking about one court case after another, and they're constitutional scholars that never get into the Constitution. When they get in there, they can't read it. And they want to say that, and they want to say that Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5, talks about in order to be a president of the United States, you must be a natural-born citizen. And then they say, but it doesn't actually say what a natural-born citizen is. So listen up, you crazy fools. I mean, look, you think these people know something, but I got to tell you something. They don't have it. They think that they do. Now let me read you the language in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5, and then I'm gonna read it the way it is in the Constitution, and then I'm gonna read it so that I can disaggregate the fragments of the sentence and reconstruct the sentence so that the conjunctive connections are different than they are in the writing, but I won't change one word of the meaning of what it says. It'll mean the same thing. But let me read what it is in the Constitution first. I'm reading from Article 2. And Get your constitutions out and follow me here and see if it's not in there. Now, they say that the meaning of natural born citizen is not in the Constitution. And who's saying it? These jugheads like Alan Dershowitz. Okay, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible for the office of President. Now they got a semicolon there, and I learned how to use a semicolon when I was in high school in Mrs. Reed's class, and I learned that very well in terms of what that means and why you put a semicolon there rather than a period, meaning the next sentence that follows it would be connected to and closely related to the preceding sentence. So sometimes when you have that kind of proximity to the meaning of the first part, then you separate it just with a semicolon, showing that it may not be necessarily a full sentence because of the connectedness to what has happened and preceded before. So you'll put a semicolon there rather than a period. So you don't always have to have it as a complete thought because it's tied into the thought that preceded it. So it says here, and I'll read it again, then I'm going to go back and over it and I'm going to disaggregate it to the point where you can see the meaning, because these people are saying, they're saying natural born citizen not in there. I'm going to tell you why they're saying that too. They're saying it because they don't intend to follow it. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of President. And we'll stop right there. There's a few more lines to it, but it stops right there with the part that's pertinent to this conversation. So let me read this. Since they say it's not in here, let me read it so even they can understand it. I'm going to enclose some words here in brackets. I want you to imagine brackets here when I get to a part that I'm going to connect up to the reading, but I'm going to connect it up that's in another part of the sentence, but I'm going to put it in this part of the sentence as well. It says, no person except a natural born citizen or a citizen. Okay, I'm going to put in there a bracketed word here. No person except a natural born citizen in the United States. You got it? Now, I put in the United States in there, but it's not at that point that it's in there, but it's in the next part of it. No person except a natural born citizen in the United States, I put the in the United States in there, put that in brackets in your mind, or a citizen of the United States. You see, all I did there was take the words of the United States and I put it with the first part of the sentence, but the framers put it at the other part of the sentence with it implied that it also connects up to the first part of the sentence. Can you fatheads understand that? Okay. All right. It is in here. You understand that? Now let me explain where they got off. When they got off, in other words, natural born and also those previous to it, but would not be consigned to the language because it was citizens before the language became evocative, then you are saying that those who are citizens before the language would have applied to your citizenship, you're not going to be prevented from being able to be present under this condition. But you see, even in that case there, you have to be what? Connected to the land. I don't care what you scholars say. Let me tell you something. Those of you who are even saying this, you're saying that a person born outside the country, which would be Ted Cruz's situation, he's born in Calgary, Canada, that are saying that those who are born outside the country and they are born to parents, let's say one of the parents or both of the parents are American citizens, those persons are natural born citizens of the United States. I don't want to call you out of your name, and I don't want to use any profanity on the air. But that's how strongly I feel about what you're saying. Because you don't know anything. You think that you do. Because none of that is true. Let me read the 14th Amendment to you scholars, because I find you quite sickening. And you better not get on my post and say anything, because that'll be embarrassing. Let me read something to you scholars out here. I don't want to talk to the layman, because see what the laymen do, they get on my wall because you taught them, and they get on my wall and they want to chat with me in the private chat, and they want to tell me what you said. And I tell them this in those private chats: look, don't come in with what they said. Send them. Don't, you the messenger, send them, because you're not qualified to carry the water. Well, you're qualified to carry the water, but you're not qualified to carry it over here. Let me read you the 14th Amendment. I'm going to disaggregate this part also, because you can't read that part either. There's a lot of things I can say about the 14th Amendment, about why it's put in the Constitution, but let me just talk about the language that's placed there. And I want to also get to why this idea of the intentionality of the language is inappropriate to be applied to anything that's written down in the Constitution. The intentionality is irrelevant. I know you don't think so, but I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you why it is so. Now, now the 14th Amendment, let me read this to you. And I'm going to read it first, and I'm going to do brackets again in this language as well. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject, now the word "and" is a conjunction, right? So all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. So you're citizens of the United States in its totality, all 50 states today, 13 states at the time. Well, it was the Amendment 14, the states in the country at that time, with, the 14th Amendment was added in 1868. 13 was 1865. Yeah, 14 was 1868. And the 15th Amendment was 1870. 12th Amendment was 1803. And it hadn't been amended for 62 years when it was amended again in the aftermath of the Civil War. We were not amending this document every 5 minutes, in other words. We were, in fact, very particular about what was placed in there. But we don't have to do with the intent once it's put there, because the words are the intent. That is to say, all that's relevant once it's placed in the document is what's placed in there. And if you start talking about the intent of the language, you don't know anything about the two-tiered process, the amendment process that is explained in Article 5. I don't think you understood that, but I will explain that later. Okay, the 14th Amendment says this then. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and the first part now being connected to the second part, and there's something else required here. The "and" is saying, okay, the first part is required, and there is a second part that's required. So all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states in which they reside. You have to do both. You're citizens if you're born in the country, and you're citizens if you are naturalized in the country, if you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And I have to tell you something here. That right there in that language precludes the idea that you can just come over here with a child, you're pregnant, and come in here 1 month before the child is born, or even an hour before the child is born. The child is born in the soil, and your child is a citizen of the United States, which these boneheaded legislators are in fact claiming. None of that is in fact true. If you are born to parents who are not citizens, then those parents cannot bestow citizenship upon their children because they don't have it themselves. Because the jurisdiction under which they are, which is also the jurisdiction of the children, is the jurisdiction of the countries of their birth and the ones in which they have citizenship of. That also would preclude Ted Cruz. No matter how much you might like him and how much you've been fooled by this man, and that's what it really is when you talk about Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz is part of the establishment just like the rest of them are, just more clever than they are. And there are a lot of articles that are out about how this man plays both sides against the middle and is able to act like he's taking one position and taking another position because he's just as clever as the rest of those politicians out there. And in my article today, I just got through writing before I came to the studio. I'm calling for all of them to, in fact, stand down because we have to get rid of all of these politicians, and that is without exception. I was writing a post before I came to the studio today, by the way, and I was saying in that post that it's time for us to take this country back. And when I say that, I know most persons believe that we're saying that only because we got we have the first acknowledged black president. And I'm not saying it because of that. I'm saying it because the country has been hijacked. And that includes Obama, but it's not specific to Obama. It's really specific to everybody that's in Washington right now that's in government. This country's been hijacked. And we're going to take it back and place it where it belongs, under the Constitution, where the will of we the people rules this country, under the rule of law spelled out in the Constitution of the United States. And I'm not one of those persons advocating this nonsense that we are a country where the government is we are government of the people, by the people, for the people, because that's nonsense also. You can read that in the preamble to the Constitution. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And how are we going to do that? Do, ordain, and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. It does not say do, ordain, and establish the people of the country in charge of anything. What's in charge of is the Constitution of the United States. And he said that in the introduction to the Constitution. That's what they were trying to do at the Constitutional Convention. So we are now at the 30-minute mark. Okay, we're going to stop at 30 minutes today. So
26 minutes.
26 minutes. All right, we got 4 minutes. Okay, so anyway, look, the point is this, that the reason why all of this yoking of the country around all these nonsensical claims is because they don't understand that all of it has to be attached to land. The natural citizenship has to be attached to land. And also, if you're born outside the country, but you're not a natural born citizen when you're born out of the country, your citizenship is still attached to the land. Let me say this about that part. If you're born outside the country, let's say both of your parents are citizens, and you're born outside the country, but you never, in fact, come on the soil of the United States, you are never a citizen of the United States. And therefore, this idea that you're a citizen at birth is nonsense. Listen to this very carefully. All persons born or naturalized in the United States. All persons born, let me read it and put the brackets in there again. All persons born in the United States or naturalized, or what does it say about naturalized? Let's say it together like in a chorus. In the United States, you understand that? Is all attached to the soil. So then let's talk about Ted Cruz. Is he a citizen when he's born? No. Is he a natural born citizen? No. Why is he a natural born citizen? Because when he was born, he was not born attached to the soil of the United States, and that's what's found in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5. And he's not a natural born citizen based upon that. Now, is he a citizen when he's born? No, that's not true either. But the naturalization for him takes place once he makes contact on the soil. Then there's a naturalization for those whose parents are citizens. Okay, that's what I wanted to come to the studio today and say. In these 30 minutes, we're going to do the program today, because the Catherines are already in the studio and they're telling me to get out of here. They're going to throw me out of the chair. But stay around. They'll be coming your way in about 25 minutes now, and we're glad to have them in the studio. And we're looking for that program as I run home to watch it live. Okay, I want you to always read my article. I want you to always do that as well. But I want you to always follow your dream. Because if you don't follow your dream and not my dream or anyone else's dream, you will never know what's for you on the other side of the rainbow. See you next week.